Thank you for joining us today. My name is Matt Brookman, and I'm a Senior Workforce Consultant at Quovim C3. Today, I'll be your host for the next 50 minutes. I'd also like to introduce Eric Hageman. He's a Senior Product Manager at Aspect Software. You'll be hearing from Eric in just a few minutes. Chances are you're joining us today because you're looking around for a workforce management solution, looking to optimize your current solution, or perhaps you just want to learn how Aspect Software can help you achieve some of the results listed on your screen. Today we have one goal, and that's to provide you with the fundamentals required to guide you through the process. My team and I are experienced workforce management and also Aspect certified consultants with a vast array of expertise with customers, experiences with customers across North America. We hope to translate our knowledge into success for you. Before we begin, if you're facing any issues at all, please refer back to the webinar confirmation email and click the System Requirements URL and follow the instructions to reconnect. We always encourage an interactive webinar, so feel free to use the chat box and ask questions, comments, and interact through the live session. To get the conversation started, I do have a question for everyone. Let me know the key reasons, or the main reasons why you're online with us today. Go ahead and send us your responses, and we'll definitely do our best to fulfill your expectations. And of course, we'll have a Q&A session at the end, so be sure to stick around with your questions. All right, so let's get started. Here's what we'll be covering today. We're going to discuss the key features and benefits of a workforce management system and the crucial but often overlooked steps to follow before and after implementation. We'll also present two real customer case studies that showcase the impact of not following workforce management best practices. But first, let me take a moment to explain why we speak from experience and who we are at Quovim C3. Quovim C3 is a product and service provider focused on improving contact center operations. We've helped more than 100 companies optimize their contact distribution and service centers with cross-channel communications, workforce management solutions, and services. We've worked with companies of all sizes. Our clients include small to mid-range clients up to large enterprises from all industries across North America. Just for example, we're currently managing a project with 20 users, with another one going with about 220 users, and a larger project with about 1,000 plus users. So no job is too big and no job is too small. Here's just some of our clients. As you can see, we have some clients in the healthcare industry, insurance, point of sale system, some government, internet service providers, airline, retail, and marketing industries. We have a vast number of clients, all basically in different industries. Several months ago, Quovim C3 acquired myself and SSA Solutions, a leading workforce management consulting firm with an impressive list of clients in customer engagement and workforce optimization. Over the years, our SSA Solutions team, including myself, have worked closely with Aspect on several major projects. It's the main reason why we decided to co-present today with our partner in best-in-class workforce management solution provider, Aspect Software. And now I'd like to hand over the reins to our guest speaker, Eric Hageman.
Well, hello, good morning. Thank you very much. Pleased to be with you today, and would like to kind of set the stage here for our session. If we could advance the slide, please. And advance one more time. So it is not a trivial task to get the right number of staff in the right place at the right time if you are an enterprise that's managing customer contact, inbound or outbound, over voice, over messaging channels, over email or other media types. This slide here shows some of the symptoms of that challenge. It's common in the industry to have human employees, the agents in our centers, not fully utilized. It's common to have very unpredictable and expensive results of over or understaffing, and a lot of that turns into employee experience problems, employee morale problems, results in turnover, and further cost to the enterprise. So scheduling, which is one of the most fundamental elements of the practice of workforce management in your business is not only an art, it has a healthy dose of science that goes with it. If you don't mind, let's do 2 more clicks and build this slide out completely. So let's talk a bit more about this practice of workforce management, not any particular system, but why is this important to your business? Well, first and foremost, the largest cost of providing customer support or service is the humans, the people, the agents, the employees doing that for you. So that lends itself to be a significant portion of that operating cost to your business. Therefore, there's a need to kind of get the right people in the right place at the right time and optimize that for the goal of your business, whether that's a balance of cost versus revenue or delivering a certain level of service or responsiveness on the channels that you're using. The results of having a great customer experience can actually have a huge impact on the bottom line of the enterprises too. So this is one of the key tenets of the practice of workforce management as a business need. So from a customer perspective, if you have a consistent experience with the company, you are connected to an employee or an agent who has the right skill set to handle your needs. Often in a first call or a first contact resolution, that is a huge benefit to your customer. You start to see the enterprise you're working with in a different light, and that customer loyalty goes a long way towards bottom lines, of course. And then from the perspective of the employee, an enterprise with an effectively managed workforce is a hugely beneficial place to work in comparison to others that are not. You're given tasks that you are skilled to do. You have a bit of time to learn new skills and increase your worth to the company and have a career path. You have the tools that you need to have a flexible scheduling experience and feel like you're part of the enterprise, not kind of being given a command and control structure, but you can fit in the work into your life with flexible scheduling and notification options, and all that increases morale. So these are some of the key tenets to managing a modern workforce. Let's advance the slide, please. Great. So now let's talk about the tools that will drive a successful business practice of workforce management. And there are actually 4 really key fundamental things that happen in a continuous cycle. First is planning for the future, planning for anticipated workloads, planning for the right number of staff to handle that workload within the business goal, whether that's achieving a deadline, whether that's delivering service with a certain level of responsiveness, or a balance of cost versus revenue, or potentially even in some scenarios answering every single contact no matter what in the case of emergency lines. The next fundamental piece required is scheduling. So we need to take the statistical requirement of staff and match it to not only employee preferences, but also the needs of the business to have legal schedules. Maybe you have union requirements, maybe you have regional or other laws that you need to adhere to, and ensure that whatever schedules are assigned or bid or built by employees, that they adhere to these needs. So that's where the kind of the math hits the human element. The next main feature is you put the schedules into practice and you're performing intraday management. Is my plan matching what's happening today? If it's not, if there are deviations, what elements are deviating? Is it the volume? Is it our handling characteristics? Do I have a different amount of staff available than I thought? And how do I react? How do I quickly identify the correct reaction? How do I identify how employees are performing? This intraday management function is critically important because workforce management involves not only planning but also reacting and having plan A, plan B, and plan C. And then visibility, which really means examining how you performed in the recent past and using those results not only for improvement with your staff, but also to improve your next round of planning and forecasting. And these 4 steps are happening in a cycle continuously in any effective business. So let's take another slide step forward, please. So now let's take that business challenge, which I will summarize here as getting the right number of people in the right place at the right time with the right skill set to meet my business goal, which is an optimization principle, whether it's service level or one of the other elements we talked about. And at the same time, manage my cost, manage the performance and adherence of the employees, respond to deviations from my plan, let employees feel like they're part of the enterprise and give their schedule preferences or their ability to build their own schedules an importance in my organization. How do I free my supervisors up to manage the customer rather than managing some of the day-to-day internals? And manage my cost related to overtime. And the answer is Aspect Workforce Management. We provide a set of tools to help you meet this business challenge. Let's take a step ahead. And what I'd like to do is just do a very brief overview of some of the core and optional components and some of the business challenges these address, and then we'll hand it back to Matt right after that. So first and foremost, the core workforce management product provides 3 fundamental solutions for your business problems. The first is forecasting, a rich way to forecast your staffing need across inbound and outbound, multi-channel and back office workloads, and then a variety of different goals that you could set, whether it's a simple service level, we want to answer 80% of these contacts in 20 seconds, whether it's a deadline, this queue of emails due Friday, whether it's a level of responsiveness. On this chat channel, we want to be sure that within the conversation, the customer is never left waiting for a reply longer than 45 seconds. Those optimization principles are all baked into forecasting. The results of forecasting then can be managed in the scheduling engine. Am I creating schedules based on legal templates? Am I creating schedules based on a blend of the employee's preferences versus the business need? Or am I generating an inventory of time and the employees are literally building their own schedule? All of these are available. And next we have a set of features in the tracking category. Let me see my plan versus what's really happening today and give me that easy understanding of when things are deviating and what I might do to react to that. And all of this is wrapped up in the core package that you can't do without. Let's take a step ahead, please, with the slides. So the first, I'm going to call this an optional module. I think we'd all agree that sort of the table stakes of any modern workforce solution include not only forecasting and scheduling and tracking, but also agent adherence and productivity and self-service. So these core plus these first 2 I consider table stakes. So WFM Perform is a package where we include not only real-time alerting based on the activities of the agent, when are they exceeding business norms, because you don't want to be constantly flooded as a manager of a workforce with the second-to-second activity of all your staff. You just need to know when things are outside of the norm, right? But also the ability to store all that activity, compare it to the actual schedules, and let you look at that for trending and analysis, either in real time or historically. Let's step ahead with the slides, please. One more, thank you. The Empower package includes our HTML5 web interface, which includes everything the employee users of the system need to do, from schedule management to schedule change requests, with a business rule engine to automatically evaluate trades, as well as requests for schedule change and more, but also a significant feature set for the supervisors and a growing feature set for the workforce management team. This also includes the ability to send notifications based on events related to schedule change, the status of a trade offer, or any fundamental changes supervisors may make to schedules. And this is kind of the third tripod leg of the the needed things for any modern workforce solution. Take one more step forward and talk about some solutions that address problems that not necessarily every enterprise encounters. Some enterprises have a command and control structure that may span different geographies or may span the globe, where a central site is in charge of a global forecast or a global staffing requirement, and those things are allocated to individual or regional sites, which then take that input and will use local business practices to complete the workforce tasks, generating schedules and doing the tracking. And we have a powerful feature called WFM Allocate to manage those scenarios. Let's take a step forward. Now, depending on your scenario, you may not have infinite physical resources available to you. I think that's very common. So we have the ability to perform seat management for any particular location, to track each, not only seat, but also pieces of equipment that may be necessary to perform work, and to assign those to employees, and to enable a lot of features. For example, when a new hire class is brought on, do we have the equipment available at the times that are needed for those employees to work in this center, on this floor, or that floor, and to just get control over some of the facility and equipment needs of your contact center workforce. And last but not least, let's take one step forward. A reality in our market is that you don't always have the staff you need. So sometimes you'll use the services of a outsourcing vendor, a staffing provider. You may also be a staffing provider or a BPO yourself, in which case information exchange is really important. Whether you're a client or a provider of staff, you need to know how many staff are needed, how much volume is expected to be handled, and how are the outsourced staff performing. And to manage this relationship, we have an optional feature set called Encompass, which manages not only that data transfer, but also lets you define which elements you're sharing with the other company so that you comply with the terms of your contract with that company, whether it's one that is focused on volume being handled or delivering within a certain service level or providing a certain amount of staff. It gives you the visibility required within those contractual terms. So with that being said, I'd like to hand it back over to Matt and go on to our next section here.
Thank you, Eric. Just a reminder to please continue posting your questions and comments in the chat box. And for the second half of the webinar, I'd like to focus on two important factors. First, I'll walk you through the importance of following workforce management best practices, as that they're as critical as the workforce management itself. Then I'll highlight the consequences faced when best practices are not implemented, using two real case studies that helped our clients overcome some of their challenges. At Quovim 3.3, success can be measured by two factors. The first factor may seem obvious, but definitely bears repeating. Our workforce management main capabilities must meet your business, but also your operational needs. Eric did an outstanding job outlining aspects of superior capabilities and demonstrated the importance of selecting the best software for your needs. The second success factor relates to operational management best practices. This encompasses implementing the proper software methodology and defining how you empower your team to use the technology properly and to its true potential in order to maximize your workforce, which Eric pointed out is a contact center's largest expense. Like most things in life, there are a right way to do things and a wrong way. This also definitely applies when you're implementing and using any workforce management solution up to its potential. Through my experience, and I'm sure several of you in the webinar, there's really only one right way to do it. I'll give you just two small examples that I see. Every time I go to a client, their workforce management software and their telephony software are in different intervals. So basically you have your workforce management software working in 15 minutes, your telephony working in 30, and the result is your reporting is inaccurate and one of the reports have to be rebuilt. So your workforce management software either has to work in the 30-minute interval or vice versa. Another thing I do see quite often is when you're linking to skill and not VDN, with AI being so prominent nowadays, it's best to link to VDN. Alternative ways to implement and manage your workforce management solution will work to a certain extent, but definitely provides no guarantee of maximizing your long-term investment. You're also likely to encounter many pitfalls as well. I'll show you how overlooking workforce management best practices impacted two major companies that relied on our expertise to help them resolve their issues. Now I'll dive into the second success factor. Using our unique methodology, practices of operational management enables you to use the software to its true potential, increase your productivity as well as your team's, empowering your workforce, and achieving your goals. In a nutshell, practices of operational management allows you to deliver a workforce management solution that fits your internal client's needs in addition to your overall organizational needs. Now let's highlight the key operational management practices that should be executed before, during, and after implementation. But first, I want to invite you to share your questions in the chat box. We're curious to know if you have any technical or business challenges concerning your workforce management environment. We'll definitely be happy to answer your questions during the session, if we can. As much as we need the right technology, people definitely remain key. Investing in your team is crucial to ensure the success of your project. And by your team, I mean the people who implement the software and those who use the solution as well. A common mistake that I've seen is to let your IT or telephony team lead the implementation project. Both teams are important, of course, but do not really have the insight to address the business and operational needs with accuracy. With IT at the helm, the potential derived from your workforce management solution will be greatly diminished. It is important to build a proper committee that includes at least one representative from each stakeholder group in your organization. To ensure the success of your project, include one person from IT, one person from the workforce management team, and one representative from your operations. This committee will definitely give you greater visibility across the board to your organization and align to everyone's expectations. Another common pitfall is overlooking the alignment required between operations, IT, and the workforce management team. The lack of understanding, or you could say blind spot, between workforce management and operations will most likely result in an inadequate workforce management solution for the agents and your contact center. These departments obviously must work hand in hand. For these reasons, each committee member's role must be defined to avoid working in silos or separately. The best practices to follow is to balance the accountabilities between your workforce management, IT, and operations team to ensure that there's continuous and ongoing dialogue between them. I've seen this before. Training is often seen as an afterthought, a nice to have versus a critical must. Quality training is often overlooked and minimized. But to maximize your software investment requires formal training to maximize the potential when using any workforce management solution. We've worked with companies that have only invested a small fraction of workforce management solution budget on training, as little as, I believe, 3%, even after investing hundreds of thousands of dollars in the technology. This lack of investment in the people who use the technology has inevitable consequences on your workforce management potential down the line. I guess you can kind of compare this to driving an expensive car and either using the cheap gas or just not paying for insurance. Teams usually have enough skill to use the software, but some skill and knowing how to best perform a specific task are definitely very different. Quality and proper training can enable a very competent person to perform better than they would otherwise. When outlining a budget, we definitely strongly recommend training should be included to ensure that you properly educate your team on specifics of the technology they will use to manage your workforce. Not all workforce management solutions are built and used the same way. You also want to make sure your team receives first-hand workforce management solution training from a certified expert. And I know, I've seen it before, train the trainer may seem like a cost-efficient means, but letting a team member who has maybe trained months or even years ago train your entire organization will lead to a diluted and possibly outdated information across your organization. Define your complete service offer. Confirm with all the stakeholders, such as operations, HR, IT, why you need workforce management, and what you want to achieve. Define how your users will access your different workforce management applications. Conduct surveys to collect the right answers. You'll need to adapt to your workforce management solution. The software will definitely not adapt to your existing solution. Definitely not recommend recycling old processes. Take the time to define new strategies with your new workforce management solution. Document how you would handle escalations. It's definitely difficult to maximize your investment with just simple readjustments. Next, create a technical list including all tools needed to manage the project and all the systems involved. We're almost ready to introduce our second customer case study, but first, I want to wrap up by summarizing what I just mentioned. We learned from your workforce management success is measured by two key factors. One is being the right software, and two, using operational management best practices based on these four pillars, which is your service offer, your process, your tools, and most importantly, the way you empower your team to use the software. Unfortunately, I do not have time to cover all these components, but investing in these four pillars will definitely guarantee your workforce management processes will run smoothly before, during, and most importantly, after your implementation. It's fair to say that operational management execution definitely could be complex. Having all the stakeholders on the same page is never an easy task, but it's necessary and it's completely worth the effort. Outsourcing your practices of operational management will facilitate and accelerate the execution of your project. Thanks to our proven experience, Quovim 3.3 can work with your team to deliver your operational management practices in a reasonable time frame. 1 to 2 business days for a contact center of 15 users, and 2 weeks for a contact center of 1,000 users. And remember, your practices of operational management guarantee the optimization of your investment. If you need to build a business case to start your project, we'll definitely be more than happy to assist you. I invite you to click on the link we have just shared in the chat box to schedule a call with one of our team members after this webinar to have a basically one-on-one conversation offline. Moving on to our first client experience. We managed a project for a leading company in the services industry that involved over 600 users. Unfortunately, this team's perspective of the software was negative. They were frustrated because they were missing their targets and assumed that they couldn't build what they wanted within Aspect software. Myself and my team knew that from the start it wasn't Aspect's capabilities. They were not the issue. Although the team had the right skills to manage their software, their frustration was mainly caused by the lack of understanding the technology. You cannot properly manage your workforce if your team does not master the software, which brings us back to one of our common pitfalls: training and organizations who overlook the need to invest in teaching their teams to properly utilize the software. By not empowering your staff to learn the specifics of the technology, you'll basically end up, in a similar scenario where everyone assumes the workforce management software or the team is a problem and needs to be replaced. When reality is, no one was taught how to properly use it. We were able to resolve the main issue within a 5-day training program, Although the team had experience using the workforce management system, they needed to understand and learn how to maximize the use of the Aspect solution to uncover its full potential. This training also gave the information they needed to customize the configuration of Aspect software for their company's needs. We also supported them in making the required technical adjustments to their business model. We enabled users to optimize their forecast, scheduling, tracking tasks, and amongst other features as well. In a nutshell, performing a post-implementation audit with our practices of operational management was enough to prevent the replacement of their workforce management solution. And realistically, if they selected a new workforce management solution, they would have likely gone through the same exercise with significant time and possible financial losses. We helped them find the value of their current solution, representing significant savings on budget as well as resources. And let's be clear, this is not a software-driven issue. It's more of a people training investment issue. And this occurs with other best-in-class solutions as well. This brings me back to my initial statement. There are a lot of ways to implement and manage your workforce management solution, but there's really just one way to do it right. Luckily, as you heard, it's not too late to backtrack and fix issues. And the proof, our service company is a great example. They are now very satisfied with their Aspect solution and doesn't plan on changing it. By now, I'm sure you all realize the importance of applying our 2 success factors from the very beginning. This will ensure that you save time, but also resources. If you have the right solution, focus on your practices to make sure you don't face these issues down the line. Your current solution capabilities are too limited. Focus on selecting the right software first. Aspect being a great example of what you can consider, and then work on your operational management prior to kicking off any implementation. If you need help, once again, feel free to click on our chat box and schedule a call with us. We'd definitely be happy to help. For our second case example is from a leading telecommunications company in Canada. They were ready to implement their workforce management solution, and though a business case we designed, we helped them realize the consequences they would face for not defining their service offer and for not documenting their processes prior to implementation. The outcome, well, we confirmed expectations of each group as IT, workforce management, and operations were all unclear. They also demonstrated that their investment was at risk. We also demonstrated that their investment was also at risk because they didn't know the exact context behind the project and didn't define roles, accountabilities, and processes. There would be no return on investment under these conditions. Our client placed their trust in our expertise to expertly guide them with their workforce management project, where we applied our operational management methodology. The implementation phase went very smoothly because the objectives were clear. The responsibilities and accountabilities were all defined. This allowed a good mutual understanding for all departments that were involved. And what we delivered was a clear understanding of the needs to properly configure the software, a smooth integration where each part understands its role and responsibilities. Change management to facilitate an easy go live and seamless integration with the agents. Had we not been consulted prior to the implementation of this software, this company would have probably ended up in the same situation as we described with the first client. So now that I've shown you the importance of workforce management best practices, let me know how important the 2 categories listed on the screen are to you. This is going to help us understand just how you perceive all the information discussed during the second part of the webinar. So please review the options listed and either type 1, 2, or 3, or 4 in the chat box.
I see one person typed in number 1. There's a couple who are typing in number 1.
Do we have any questions that we could answer as well?
We do have a question. How can one handle skills-based routing to meet volume demand? Using
Say that again?
yeah, this is from Alex out there. How can one handle skills-based routing to meet volume demands using WFM?
Yeah, I can tackle that one. This is Eric. So skills-based routing has been out there for a while, and to some extent starting to evolve into attribute-based routing. But it's the notion that you're not strictly doing first in, first out type of routing. You're at least at some level attempting to match a particular customer with a particular agent or type of agent to get a better interaction. And generally, because a phone call will abandon, it's pretty important that there is some time limits on that. If the agent's not available, it'll roll to a bigger group. So workforce management is built to help you meet your staffing goal, not necessarily to replicate your routing, because routers are fantastic at emergency procedures and rollover and contingency measures. But WFM is really meant to help you answer that question. What's the right number of staff so I don't have all these emergency measures occurring? And while you could set up your WFM model to be the same as your routing, you're going to find it's probably not going to give you the answers you want. In general, it's kind of the deeper question: what's the right number of staff to deliver on the business goals? And then I need to use all those contingency measures a little bit less heavily. So you may not set up WFM to exactly match your routing, but we can certainly represent all those kind of unique combinations of skills in a generic way. You don't have to have specific employees defined in the system to do that. And the power of that is you can look into the future and say, how many of each unique type of skill mix do I need in the future to more effectively handle my customers? Other solutions you may find out there require that you create dummy employees and things of that nature, which is pretty clunky. And we have a construction called a staff group, which is a unique grouping of employee skills, and construction called a forecast group, which is a unique type of work flowing in or out of your center, and then you associate these things with each other in what we call a routing set, and that gives you the ability to really kind of flexibly define what your staffing goal is and get those answers.
Thank you, Eric. There's another question out there. What features of Aspect software makes it different from other WFM systems?
That's a good question.
Yeah. I'll take a swing at that if you don't mind, Matt, then
yeah, go ahead.
Let you add on to it. Sure. So Aspect has been in this business since the beginning. Software has been under continuous development for at least 4 decades. And we're at the forefront of the workforce business as it evolved with you. And we're certainly not resting on our laurels by any means. So not only do we have kind of the fundamental problem solved in a really universal way, for example, staff shrinkage. You can define any number of categories of staff shrinkage. You're not limited as you are in other vendors. You can create as many as are meaningful for you. And additionally, we can automatically update those so that when you go to use a certain category of shrinkage for planning, it's guaranteed to be up to date, and no other vendor kind of has that. We also have innovative ways to use that. For example, not only in forecasting, but in intraday planning, you can look ahead and predict the effect of unentered exceptions on an intraday staffing plan just a few days in the future, and be sure that you're not double counting the historical amount of shrinkage versus the amount that's actually planned in schedules. So not only do we have the fundamentals handled, but we're also going into the future with you guys, and the multi-channel feature set is really an example of that. For example, chat's becoming common, and we took several man years of research into this and identified that, hey, what drives a chat conversation is not necessarily how quick do I answer the chat, but how responsive am I message over message within that conversation. And we have a unique capability released in the product now to not only let you ask the question, how might my current staff respond? What kind of responsiveness could we expect to deliver to our customer, given a certain workload and a certain amount of staff, but how much staff do I need to achieve a goal of a certain level of responsiveness? So in a long-winded way, I guess I'm trying to say we've got the basics better than other solutions you're probably familiar with, and we're also forging ahead and heavily investing in giving you the tool you need for the future as well.
Yeah, I could add on to that, from a workforce management perspective, I guess to kind of, a lot of people say, sum it up in one word. I'll say it's very customizable. Like Eric mentioned, the IDPs, you could really customize the views that you want to see. And I won't get into the details, but, you could either do this through routing sets or forecast or staff group, like Eric mentioned. So it's basically not a one size fits all type of tracking. I like the pivot grid, and basically it's a pivot table that's built in with the tool. And Eric, correct me if I'm wrong. So you could run a report and find the answers to your question without exporting to Excel. And me, when doing workforce management, I use Excel on a daily basis. Of course, you could still export to Excel, but I did like the pivot grid feature.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. That's a good point. So Excel is a fantastic app. We love it, but we want you to answer business questions using our tool. So we make it really easy to get any data you need from WFM into Excel, but the same token for the key workforce information, whether it's time tracking, adherence, intraday performance, forecasting, all that information in the tool. We have a drill down, roll up, pivot view that I call an analysis view, so that you could go to Excel if you want to, but we've given you the ability to drill down, roll up, and get the answers you need right within the tool.
Yeah, a lot of times operations just wants a quick answer. They don't have the time for you to export and do all this. So it definitely comes in handy. I found it very, very, very handy. There's the auto run manager, and like other workforce management solutions, you could use an auto run to run reports. But an aspect, you could also do performance cleanup. So you could, say basically if data is more than 2 years old, certain data is 2 years old, just get rid of it. You could take certain snapshots and it could be emailed. So if you want to, know every day how your team is doing between, I guess, 9 a.m. and 11 a.m., it takes these snapshots and emails it to you. And it could also, you could also tell it to publish schedules at a certain time. So even if you're on vacation, you could do all the trial schedules. And then once the trials are set, you could say publish these particular schedules at a certain time. It's a little neat feature. I know Aspect works well with all ACD systems. You have the wizards, and for me, I like the forecasting wizard because I know you can forecast on staffing, but budget, contact volume, and workload. So if you have a omni-channel center where you're doing calls and back office work, it works well that way. I have to say the support is amazing. We call you guys if we need help, but you guys are always helping us, co-presenting and all that. Something called intraday timeline, where you can just see what everyone's doing at each interval. It's graphical or it's numeric. And I think probably from the HTML or WFO is the widgets. It's basically customizable web page for your agents or your supervisors to log in, and you have good gamification. It gives the ability also for agents to, like you said, trade shifts, request time off, and they can have access to their own productivity. So it empowers the agent to change schedules, kind of not switch their own schedules, but ask for time off or trade with other agents, and that kind of saves the operations from doing a lot of these tasks throughout the day, which they don't need to do. That's all I got.
Thank you. Okay, there is another question from a different perspective, asking what is the smallest to largest WFM project you've completed at Quovim?
The smallest project that I could probably remember would be a staffing or a FTE headcount analysis, and this was basically for a smaller company that only had about, I think, 20 agents, and they did not have a workforce management team or any software, and basically they had a reduction in their contact volume, and they wanted to know if they could achieve their goals with less staff. So, what we did is we kind of just got a bunch of information from them, put all this information into Aspect, and kind of gave them multiple scenarios with multiple service levels and multiple agents and multiple schedules. The largest is, I probably would believe, doing an upgrade from version 8 to version 18, and that's not going up 10 versions. And Eric, correct me if I'm wrong though, there's version 8, 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, and then it goes to 18 with some service packs in the middle as well.
Right. We changed our version numbering in an effort to be very clear about the version of the software, regardless of the deployment type, whether it's private cloud, public cloud, or premise. Starting last year, starting with our first release of 2018, the first release in the year will be 18 to match the year number. Subsequent releases will be .1, .2, and the first release in 19 will be 19. So hopefully it'll be significantly simpler going forward. And we are releasing on a pretty quick cadence to bring features that you need to get business done to the market.
Yeah, and that particular project was for over 1,600 agents. And, just like I'm sure everyone knows, setting up a workforce management system is quite evasive. You have to work with so many different parties. And I know we weren't able to move from 8 to 18, so we had to upgrade, perform the UATs, and basically repeat one more time to get to version 18. And again, with our partnership with Aspect, it makes these type of projects very easy and doable.
Great. And I do have kind of an open question. It says, in your opinion, what makes a perfect WFM department?
For me, if I had to sum it up, it kind of goes back to the webinar. I would say consistent training. When I first started in WFM, I did a bit of everything, real-time forecasting, scheduling, and even troubleshooting the tool and setting up centers on a tool. I noticed as the years passed and I've worked for different companies, they had teams working in silos, forecasters with forecasters, real-time with real-time. And for me, if you don't train the real time to do something, forecasting, they don't evolve and they kind of get in a rut doing the same job every day. So for me, it's always that. In my opinion, if I tell anyone who wants to start in workforce management and what I just mentioned before is, knowing the workforce management software end to end, learning Excel or pivot grids in this situation, knowing the formulas. I know sometimes formulas could be daunting in Excel, but if you do it once, you just save it and reuse it. And doing workforce management methods, again, the scheduling, the forecasting, how the formulas work, and all these doesn't cost much. Nowadays, you could find all this information on the internet or through user groups.
Yeah, so I'll go a little bit meta on that one, and I'd say within an organization, a successful workforce management team really understands what drives the business, what makes customers successful, what makes customers more loyal, and then can communicate that to the employees in the contact center in a way that helps them understand what is the brand of the company, what is the goal of the company, what's it mean when your team performs well, what's it mean when you perform well within your team, and additionally takes kind of input on the people that are the feet on the ground, so to speak, that the call center employees, are the policies and procedures actually helping us deliver on the company's promise to our customer and elevate those back up if there's ways to do things better and just really be a completely integrated part of the business. And then to achieve those goals, become expert with, workforce management tool to take care of the statistical and the help automate workflows and free you up to really be an integrated part of your business from the call center agent all the way up to management, and use the tools to help you serve that purpose and really be a valued part of your enterprise rather than the old way or problematic way to look at contact centers as a cost center, like it's something we must do. And in fact, it's probably the thing that's really driving your business equal to whatever product your business is offering.
And if you succeed, if you pass your service level, you do have a good month, it's always operations that takes the credit. But then if you have a bad month, they always come to workforce management. So it takes a special type of person to work in workforce management. As a workforce management manager, there's always downtime, especially during the holidays. For me, I would always kind of say, okay, you're doing intraday or real time, you do scheduling. You do a schedule, just a mock schedule, see what you do, learn, and kind of just, not only does it teach them something new, it makes their resume a bit better. It gives them a different task than doing the same thing every day. I would always cross-train my members, even if they, weren't so into it. But that was one thing I'd always recommend, always cross-train, and more cross-training.
All right, and we have, looks like one more question. Do you have a mobile app, scheduling change, vacation, and so forth?
Yeah, this is Eric. We certainly do. We've got a couple different options. The Aspect has a mobile app that's available in the Android and iOS stores. That's an optional add-on to the product. We also have the web interface is an HTML5 interface, so it will function on mobile browsers. Its layout and its style is a desktop style, so you can go to landscape mode and pinch and zoom, but it will function. We are also building a series of mobile web layouts, which you'll see in short order here in the market. But short answer is yes, we have got a mobile app for the employee workforce functions. Absolutely.
All right, that looks like it's all the questions.
Just want to say thank you for everyone for joining again. Please feel to reach out to us. And if there's no more questions, I wish everyone a good rest of the day.
Thank you.